When you clearly don't work somewhere, but people seem to think you do. Welcome to this episode of I Don't Work Here, Lady. Our first one is from Glittering Union 860. A few years back, I was at a big hardware chain store buying a power tool. I'm an electrician and I'm dressed like it. Now, employees in this place wear high-vis yellow, but so do a good portion of those coming in to buy stuff, like me. I'm undecided on the make of tool I want, so I'm reading up on the differences between a few, and an older guy next to me asks a question about his choice. Are the blades for this compatible with the Ryobi ones? Just thinking he thinks I might know. Dunno, what's the package say? It should have a list of blade codes it uses. What code am I looking for? No idea, mate. Back to browsing. That's not good enough. Still looking down at what I'm doing, reply jokingly, yeah, I failed you. Why don't you find out? I look up and scowl. What? Piss off. Find it yourself. Guy throws the tool onto the shelf and storms off. I think, what a tool, and go back to what I'm doing. A few minutes later, I hear a voice a few meters away. Ah, he does not work here. That's a customer. I look up and this guy is standing all puffed up with the manager in tow, and I immediately realize that he thought I worked there and was trying to get me in trouble. I've worked in retail in my younger days and still carry some residual resentment towards customers, so my response just came out automatically. I looked at him and in the most disdainful soft tone just said, "Dickhead," and went back to browsing. The reaction from the two of them was quick but satisfying. The manager is pushing down a grin. The old guy deflates and looks utterly mortified. I'd feel bad, but the staff in those places aren't paid enough to have to deal with people getting them in trouble. The job sucks. Don't make it suck more. I don't understand these people who like to try to get people in trouble. I feel like they have something missing in their life that they need to go out day to day and create all sorts of drama. I'm glad this guy was put in his place. This next one is by Saren Levant. So I'm at Barnes & Noble waiting for my girlfriend to get off work, and I'm sitting in the cafe reading Mary Poppins when a lady comes up to me asking if I could help her find books by P.L. Travers. I get why she asked me, but I've had a bad day and don't want to deal with people, so without even looking at her I just say, I would prefer not to, which annoys her. She starts going off about how she's gonna get my manager and tell them I'm ruining products and refusing to help customers. So I tell her it's my personal copy. Also, the cover doesn't match the newer editions, and ignore her. She continues to get pissy and a manager comes by to see what's going on. She gives the whole spiel to the manager and demands he fire me, to which he gloriously replies, I would prefer not to. The woman huffed off pretty quick after that, looking like we just shot her dog. Melville would be proud. So a lot like the last one, we have a customer that thinks causing drama and getting an employee in trouble is actually a good thing. In this case, this customer has the audacity to make things up to achieve their goal, which they still did not. This next one is from CWU007. I'm a shift manager for a retail drugstore chain. We offer a variety of services. One is a wire transfer of money. So one night I have a customer, who we'll call Jane, who can only speak Spanish. She brought a friend along, but something happens where they get into an argument and the friend leaves. I barely know any Spanish, took it in high school and failed. Jane is now irate that I can't help her. I get my phone and turn on Google Translate, but it doesn't work. Apparently Jane is illiterate. Just to clear the air, I hold no resentment against people who can't speak English in the US. Unless you know all the details about someone, you have no right to judge. Both my parents are Chinese immigrants and came to the US in their 30s, barely speaking a word of English. Although they learned, they never truly mastered it. Quite often as a kid, I had to translate to clear up what someone was saying. Jane starts yelling at every customer who passes, asking if they speak Spanish. Most customers just run away, probably because of her attitude. Finally, a customer, who we'll call John, gets flagged down and offers to help. John asks Jane to please speak slowly and calm down. John tells me that he's a high school Spanish teacher. He teaches formal terms and Jane is using a lot of Colombian slang terms. John helps Jane finish up her paperwork and translates as I'm walking her through the paying process. After Jane leaves, I thank John profusely, telling him he's a lifesaver. John says, "No, thank you." This was at the beginning of the COVID lockdowns. John explains that ever since the lockdown happened, he hasn't had a chance to practice his Spanish, so this was a perfect opportunity. Anyone who speaks multiple languages knows that if you don't use it, you lose it. I give John a discount and store gift card. John tells me that he gave Jane his number so he could help her learn English and hopes that she'll take his offer. I'm glad this story had a happy ending for all involved, considering a lot of these usually just don't, but the fact that people are offering to help one another, that's just great. I really hope Jane took John up on the offer. This next one is by Nat Libertarian. A few years ago, I used to work at a large grocery store in my hometown. I worked there for about a year before I had to quit due to a very abusive manager, but overall I enjoyed the experience. I was a clerk and cashier whose job varied between customer service, cleaning, and general busy work around the building. Not long before Christmas last year, I had a really bad bout of insomnia and hadn't slept in about 36 hours, but I had to go to the store to buy some groceries for the week. I go to the store and I start looking around for what I need, but I am very, very tired and can hardly remember what I'm looking for. I noticed that a woman was looking confused between her list and the shelves. I politely asked her if she needed any help with anything. I directed her to the product she needed in another aisle, and I also got it off the shelf for her as she was quite short. I then helped another lady get something off of a high shelf, and at that point I sort of dazed out and forgot that I didn't work there anymore. I proceeded to spend the next 3 hours doing my old job. I would help customers find things, I grabbed a broom and swept half the aisles, and I even did about half a dozen cart runs to bring in shopping carts which, due to the snow, were thrown haphazardly around the lot wherever the customers were when they got done with them. Eventually, I started bagging groceries for customers at one of the registers when the cashier, a newer person who did not work there when I did, noticed I was not wearing a uniform and bluntly asked me what the fuck I was doing, and I really didn't have an answer for that. Eventually, I just said to her, "Oh right, I don't work here." See, I'm not gonna lie, I used to work at Walmart and I still have my badge, my vest, everything, and I've considered numerous times just going in there and pretending like I work there for a day, but then I realized I really don't want to go back there. And our final one is from Cordero Biggs. Many years ago, I was still in college after coming out of the US Marine Corps and worked for a small commercial remodeling company as a site supervisor. Part of my duties was a daily report on manpower, production, daily events, etc. I've always been one to go one step further, and my reports according to the production manager didn't need to be so detailed. Just the nuts and bolts, not the whole assembly, he'd say. Well, I kept a detailed log, and in it, I kept a description of every call, email, conversation, and change order, right down to the material, hours, and manpower. This was more for my reference than it was to document for my job. I used my own laptop on my projects and everything in it belonged to me, not the company. Throughout this project, there were many change orders that added around $90,000 to the project. Change orders were presented to and signed by the client and turned in. We still finished on time with the original schedule. I forgot to mention that this was an educational facility and all work had to be performed from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m., so there was zero office support because everyone else was at home sleeping for most of it. So I was on my own, and this caused a rift between myself and the grossly incompetent PM. I've never been quiet about grievances. At the end of this project, I was told that I wouldn't be needed any longer, given my final paycheck and sent on my way. Roughly 3 months later, I get a call from the PM asking if I had notes or more documentation on the change orders from that project, and I confirmed that I did. He asked me if I could find time to sit in a meeting with him, the owner of the company, and members of the board of regents to verify the change orders, because they were balking at the added charges. He offered my previous pay scale, $27 an hour to do this, to which I balked and countered with double, including my drive time to and from, plus gas. He balked. He proceeded to scream into the phone and I hung up. He called back and began screaming again and I simply said, triple, and hung up. He called back again and told me that he knew who I was working for and would make sure he got me fired. I was doing piecework, framing, and drywall on my own. I worked for me. Long story short, the owner called and talked to me. We agreed on a fair price and that the PM wouldn't be involved whatsoever with the meeting. I didn't want to see him or hear him. He agreed, told me the date of the meeting, and agreed to send over a contract, but never did. I didn't answer any of the many calls that came in on the day of the meeting. Still don't know if they worked it out, but I know that PM left shortly after and the owner is a superintendent for one of our competitors. It's funny how you had something they needed because obviously they were complaining about added charges but didn't want to pay you what they should have to get you in there. And apparently the owner, since he didn't send the contract, didn't care too much about it. Alright, that's enough stories for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of I Don't Work Here Lady. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to my patrons, have a great day and stay safe out there.